Hello and welcome once again. I'm Jared. This is Judy and Crystal, part of the amazing staff out here at Vesica Piscis Chapel in Catoosa, Oklahoma. And again, we're talking weddings today. And today we're specifically going to be talking about cakes. Yes. One of the parts of the wedding that the groom is happy to be a part of, in the cake tasting and that kind of thing. And we're just going to jump right in here. And Judy, we're going to talk about just in terms of here at Vesica. Okay. You guys actually include the cake with the package. I know this isn't the case at every venue, but you guys actually include the cake with the different packages. Why don't you talk a little more about that?
Sure. We do include the cake, and it's a very personal thing, so icing on the top is our cake person that's included in our package. There will be a bride's cake and a groom's cake. And 2 months before the wedding, icing on the top would contact the bride and groom, set up a tasting. And like you said, that's one time the groom will be there. Sometimes I don't see the groom until rehearsal, but the cake people will see him, right. But anyway, they get to choose, they'll choose the design. You can have different flavors and fillings for different layers. And it's also the number of tiers that you have will be determined by the number of guests that you have. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And then in our situation, we have enough cake for how many guests that they're paying for, basically. Oh, great. The groom's cake's kind of a bonus.
Oh, awesome.
On top of that.
Awesome. So. And now, with cakes being so popular these days, with the television shows that are out there, Cake Boss and whatnot, and they just make some of the most elaborate cakes. And I know we've seen some very interesting cakes here at Vesica, and also some very traditional cakes. Mm-hmm. But one thing you were talking about, Crystal, is that they will get very specific to, especially with the groom's cake, mm-hmm. to be more engaging with him. Right. They'll create something for him. Yes. And so why don't you talk a little more about kind of what you've seen and things like that.
Some of the different things that I've seen on groom's cakes are, I've seen a tree stump, we've seen hunting cakes, we've seen a jousting cake. That was definitely one of the most interesting ones. We've seen coolers, of course, all the sports, OU, OSU. Mm-hmm. Those seem to be the most popular, probably a little more on the traditional side for a groom's cake. But they can do lots of different things.
Very cool, very cool. So in deciding your cake, though, I mean, we already talked about how the colors come into play, and you've already chosen that. Mm-hmm. But the cake, again, in booking your cake, if you're not booking at a place like Vesica where the cake is included, yeah. How soon or how early do they need to look into the cake? Is it like everything else to where you need to jump on this pretty early because cakes book out fast?
I would recommend, mm-hmm. yes, that when you get your venue, 6 months, at least 6 months before, mm-hmm. yeah.
Pretty much once you've got your venue, go ahead and...
That's right, and get that lined out.
The majority of the big rocks are going to come into play very early on in the planning process. Yes. Once you've got your venue, just start nailing down these others. Otherwise, you may run the risk of not getting the exact person that you want company that you want to work with.
That's very true.
Gotcha. And so, again, you guys work with icing on the top, and if they're getting married somewhere else or they need a recommendation for cake people, is there anyone else here in town you recommend, or do you just really love icing on the top?
Well, we're real pleased with icing on the top. They've done a good job for us, but it doesn't mean that we wouldn't be glad to try to recommend someone else. Sure. But I mean, they're our favorite, of course. Sure. And that's why we use them.
Right. And they do weddings outside of here, too.
They do lots of weddings outside.
So if they need to know how to get a hold of them, of course, icingonthetop.com. Yes. Or they can contact us. And you'd be happy to get it to them. And once again, that number is...
918-266-2141.
You can always check us out on the web, vesicapiscischapel.com. Yeah. Check us out on Facebook, Twitter. And until next time, we'll see you then.